What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Case Digital. My name is Zach. In today's video, we're going to answer the question of how to write a function in Python. So, without further ado, let's hop right in and start coding. What is up, everybody? Before we start talking about how to write a function, I first wanted to talk about what a function exactly is in programming. Essentially, a function is a group of instructions or a set of instructions that are grouped together to obtain a specific goal. So, for instance, you could have a function that wants to print something out, or you could have a function that wants to add two numbers. These functions can have arguments that go into them that you manipulate, say like adding two numbers together, or they could be something where like, hey, like when I call this set of function, I only want you to execute this set of instructions, such as printing out a name or running through a for loop or whatever, and then return or just do something for me and then move forward in my program. So that's essentially what a function is. Again, it's just a group of instructions that are there to achieve a specific goal. Now let's dive right into how you would actually write a function. And let's first start off with how to write a function that has no arguments. Okay, so we're going to dive in right now and we're going to create a function that has no arguments. Essentially, I'm going to create a function that just prints hello world. This is kind of the basics. I know like you've seen all the hello world stuff out there, but essentially we're going to take that piece of code, that one set of instructions, and put it into a function that we can then call at any time to do that without actually having to write that line of code. So my function I'm going to say is like print hello. I'm going to say, so print hello. And this is going to be a function with no arguments. So this is basically what you would use to call the function. So this is the instruction that you use to call it. Now to create it, like you can see like the program is right here, at least in my IDE, is saying like, hey, like print hello is not defined. I don't know what you're talking about. So define it, you have to use the syntax is essentially you have to say def. So it means for defining, and you do the name of the function. So we're just going to say print hello, and then your parentheses. And now in Python, you have to do a colon, and this signifies like, hey, I've just made the signature for a function, and then I have to hit enter, and then essentially I have to indent for several spaces. Now, ideally in Python, the Pythonic way of doing things is you'll indent 4 spaces. Some people will indent, 2, as long as it's not like in line with where, because again, Python is all based on white space and stuff for their scripts. So like as long as your code that you're trying to put is not in line with this where the keyword def is, then you should be good. So I'm going to put in 4 spaces, and then I'm going to say print hello, and then we'll just say world. So now if I run this, I can say Python examples.py and run, and you'll see it says hello world. Now if I don't call this function, like you can see that it's still defined. Put pass here so it doesn't yell at me, but you'll see it's still defined, and if I run this again, nothing's gonna happen because again we did a pass. So I could say like a equals 3 and b equals 5 because we're gonna set that up for a sec. So if I run this again, you'll just see, hey, nothing happens. But if we wanted to, we could print hello world, and I can just copy and paste this multiple times now, and you should see that it should run that function that many times. And the nice thing about this is usually you'll get something that has a lot more, like you'll use functions for grouping a large number of instructions. So maybe I want this to say hello world, and then hello, and then I want it to say goodbye. Oftentimes, like if you have to repeat if you have to repeat a set of instructions or a set of code multiple times, that is the ideal condition of where you want to use a function, because we don't want to just copy and paste. Because what happens is if you have to copy and paste a bunch of stuff, if you change something of one of these set of instructions in one spot, you're gonna have to go and change it in all the other places that you copied and paste. So rather than do that, you can just change it in one spot and then keep the function call the same of where you're using it, and now you are off to the races. It's a lot easier to maintain your code, and you can now run this and you'll get something where it's just like all my different things each time. So that's the benefit of functions. Now let's look into writing a function that actually takes in arguments and how you would, so I mean, this is nice, but oftentimes you want a function that's like, hey, I want to add something together. So I want to add these 2 variables together and then return my value type. So let's go in and dive right into that right now. Hey, I just want to jump in real quick, say thank you so much for watching the video so far. If it's providing you value, please click that like button below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so we can learn more about software development and programming. And well, speaking of programming, let's get right back to it. Okay, so writing a function with arguments is the exact same thing. The only difference is I'm going to put the arguments in this signature up here. So I'm going to say I'm just gonna do an add function. So I'm gonna say def, and I'm gonna say add, and now I want to say a, and I'm gonna say I'll just say a and b, and then put the colon and hit enter, and then as you can see, my IDE automatically, when I hit enter on this, they know it's Python file, so it's just gonna put in 4 spaces for me. So essentially what happens here is I want to do something like, I want this function to always say, hey, so I'm going to say print provided, I'm going to do an F string here, A is equal to A, and B is equal to B, and then I'm going to say C is going to be A plus B, and then return C. And so what we can do here is I'll just take rid of this. I'll get rid of that. And just for fun, I'll just say add. I want to do 4 and 9. And then I want to add 9 and that number. And we're going to print these out. Or we're going to say, so var 1 is going to be equal to that. And then var 2 is going to be equal to that. And then we'll print these out. Print var 1 and print var 2. So if that was my function, say string added equals C. There we go. All right, so that's my function. And then, so again, if I ever had to change any of this code and I was trying to do this in multiple spots, the key with functions is this allows me to just change it in one spot, and then all those other places I just have to call the function and not like go and replace what I added in each of those things. And so what this is going to do is essentially, like I said, you have to have the keyword of def, and then I'm going to do my function name, so add in this case, and then parameters. What you're essentially going to do is just like you just do a comma separated list, like a comma separated and whatever you want your variable to name to be. And now in this case, it's a simple thing like add. You're just going to do A and B, like kind of what you see in math. But this could be like, hey, like I need a user dictionary. What you can put in as functions are what you're going to assume that, or what you want the user to do. So like this could be a dictionary, and you could, as you're writing your function, be doing dictionary calls. Or you could say, hey, I want this to be a list. And so when you're using this in here in this function, it could be as if it's a list. But in this case, we are going to assume that these are ints or some sort of number, and like it could be a float. We're just going to assume there's some sort of number, and we're just going to do the simple math equation of C equals A plus B. And then when I call this, what you're going to see is I'm going to reset my terminal so we can get a clear terminal. And when you see this, when I call this, what it should do is it should go through adding 4 and 9, and then telling us the total, and then adding 9, and then 54,334, and then telling its total, and then coming down here and printing the totals for each of those. So as you can see, like, hey, provided A equals 4 and B equals 9, added is 13, provided A equals 9, B equals 54,334, and you can see we got added together is 54,343, and then there's those again. So that's it. That's essentially how you write functions. Like I gave you the example of how you write a function with no parameters. I gave you an example of how you write a function with parameters. And again, in this example, I'm not even returning anything. I'm just, if that's the thing is functions can return things like I did here, and functions can just say, hey, execute this set of code. I don't need anything back. Just do what you need to do. Whereas these things say, in this function, I may want to add something, and then I want to take this and then add it with that. And so I need the variable back without having to call a bunch of functions a bunch of times. And we can store variables. And so again, that's how you create a function with a parameters and a return type. And then here's how you create one with no inputs or no arguments and no return type. Again, I could make this a function that has arguments but no return type. I could just say print this out, like I don't need C. But that's what you need. That's what you need to decide as you're programming is like, what do you need for what you're trying to do? Do I need something that has a return type or not? So try this out on the things that you're doing. Hope this helps with what the functions that you're trying to write. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep on learning with one another. And until next time, keep on programming.